the murder of George Floyd in 2020, King 5 has been committed to having difficult conversations about race. It's why we created our Facing Race unit, a group of journalists telling stories through the voices of our BIPOC community. Tonight, we continue that commitment with a difficult conversation, one that deals with some disturbing images central to this conversation tonight. As we mark 4 years since the police killing of George Floyd, we are reminded of the death of another black man, Frank Tyson, a 53-year-old from Ohio who died just 6 weeks ago while being arrested. That incident also captured on video. For many, it's what Tyson said even before that deadly police interaction that stands out. We want to warn you that what you're about to see and hear is disturbing.
You call 911. That's that gentleman standing at the bar right there.
Please get him out of here now.
I ain't you, gentlemen. No, get the sheriff.
No,
Get the
we're going
sheriff
outside.
for it.
We're going outside.
No, you ain't killing me. You ain't killing me tonight. You ain't killing me. You guys can't. No, no. No, you guys can't kill me. They're on here. They're trying to kill me. 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 Why you trying to kill me? They trying to kill me. They trying to kill me. You're in the sheriff's department. Call the sheriff. Call the sheriff's department. They're trying to kill me. They're trying to kill me. Okay.
Morning, Custody.
Get ready.
20 custody, 2029.
Stop fighting.
I can't read. I can't read. I can't. You don't want that. I can't read.
Pass the story right there. I'll be glad to read it for you.
Okay. I can't read.
You're fine.
Yep, good.
Tyson is heard saying, "They're going to kill me," more than a dozen times. His final words, "I can't breathe." 6 minutes passed before officers checked his pulse and called paramedics. He died face down and handcuffed. No one has been charged. His death is still under investigation. We have two guests joining us tonight, educator and author Aaron Jones and Marcus Harrison Green, founder of the South Seattle Emerald and a Seattle Times columnist. Our thanks to both of you for being here.
Thank you, Joyce.
A lot has happened in the 4 years since George Floyd's death. This incident that we just watched 6 weeks ago. And Marcus, I want to start with you. First, the reaction to what we saw there. Were you surprised at the response nationally or lack of response?
That's a loaded question in the sense of yes and no, right? I think that since George Floyd has passed away, what I've seen a lot of people go through is sort of a grief exhaustion, if you will. Mm-hmm. In the sense of, like, even sitting in my barbershop on Thursday and talking to the young men who were there and talking to them about this video. And they were like, oh yeah, again, right? And like, why do we need to face this again? Like, we see this happen all the time and nothing is changing. And so why should we, again, undergo this pain? Why should we go out and march only for nothing to happen? And then I see on another side, I see other people who have in some ways you might call an empathy deficit. In a sense of, like, they can't see themselves in that video. They can't see their uncle in that video. They can't see another human being who has been denied their rights in that video and denied their civil rights in that video. They see, you know, somebody who, oh, he just got out of jail 24, you know, he just got out of jail for doing a 24-year sentence. And so in some ways, maybe he deserved what happened to him. And it's just sort of this return to hell as normal, if you will, that for me and a lot of other people is, it's hard not to be cynical, I'll say that.
So Aaron, let me ask you, 4 years post George Floyd's death, where do you think we are?
In a much worse place around issues of race and harassment. Before the pandemic and before the Black Lives Matter marches of the spring and summer of 2020, most of my work in schools was going in and teaching culturally responsive practice. So helping educators better understand the different cultures around them and learn how to better serve students. Now 70% of my work in schools is responding to some sort of anti-Black incident that's happened in a school that's made the newspaper. And when I think about the numbers, every Black student I talk to in schools across the country, but also here in Washington State, in every corner, I've been in every corner of our state just in the last 2 weeks. Black students that I talk to are experiencing more anti-Black hate speech than in my 33 years of working in schools. So I think we are backwards. I came to the United States in 1989. I started working in schools in 1992. We are backwards from where we were when I started.
Which is shocking on so many levels. I want to point to a recent study. This data coming from Gallup Center on Black Voices. It shows that when it comes to policing itself, that Black adults are less confident than whites. They're less optimistic about police treatment and favor police reform 20 points more than whites do. That's what the data is showing. And this is in talking to lots of adults from across many different races. We wanted to pull out the numbers for white adults and Black adults. And this is how Americans are feeling across the country. Marcus, your reaction to those findings?
Yeah, well, one, it's not surprising, but two, even in looking at the white adults, I mean, I see that there is still a majority of folks who do want some level of change, right? It may not be like the extremes, right, of we don't want necessarily, they might not want abolition, shall we say, of like having no police at all, but they do want some level of change. They do want better policing. And I think we should have these, particularly in the news media, I think we should stop having sort of conversations around like extremes of either, police are doing a bang up job and we don't need to do anything, or we need to just abolish them fully. And we need to sort of focus on what the majority of people, both Black, white, Asian, Pacific Islander, and so forth feel, and that is that there needs to be some level of change that we can, all agree to and all adhere to.
So that everyone collectively feels safe with police in their community, regardless
Exactly.
of their ethnicity. I'm curious about your reaction to the findings.
I'm not surprised at all. I think about having raised 2 Black boys who are now men, and the conversations we had to have with them as young men about how to respond to police when you come in contact with them. And I was raised in Europe by 2 white people. I was adopted. And I remember my dad saying at one point, I did not prepare you for this conversation. My white dad, he's 79 right now. And he feels so bad that he didn't prepare me. He didn't know how to prepare me. But I look at my husband, who's a large ex-football player. He's a football coach now, and he's had so many experiences and encounters that we've had to have conversations about policing with our kids. Even though we live in a community where there's not a lot of interaction with police, we live right outside of our state capital. As I travel the state, though, there are many schools having conversations about police in schools. And what I'm finding that's interesting is there are lots of Black families that would like to have police out of the school. And there's a lot of data around police interactions in schools and what those lead to. But I'm also seeing another demographic of white folks who really are learning now that they need to also be advocating for police reform in school spaces. And so I'm not seeing that outside of the school space, but my hope is that I'm seeing, and I've gotten to facilitate some of these conversations, is a number of white folks who have seen all of this play out on the news and are saying, wait, we need to walk alongside you, and we need to be another voice in this conversation. And I think that's the only answer is we have to, much like you said, we have to realize this is affecting all of us. It's affecting Black and brown and immigrant and indigenous. It's affecting us all. And we have to realize this is about us as Americans. Do we want to create a space where we can all thrive?
Yes. And to Erin's point, I mean, this is what actually does give me hope, right? In the sense that if you look at the history of our country, right, there was a time that Black people couldn't vote, right, or we were enslaved, right? And there was not one Black person who voted, in order for us to be free and voted for our liberation, right? There had to be a dominant class of people who said, enough of them, I should say, who said, no, we believe in this American ideal that all people are equal, and so we should extend these rights. There was a point in time when women could not vote, right? And not one woman voted for women to vote, right? There was the males who were dominant at that time, enough of them had to say, enough is enough, we must extend equal rights to folks. There was a time, right, where the marriage equality was not a thing for our LGBTQIA plus communities, right? And yet now marriage equality is a thing because there is enough people who say enough is enough. We must have equal rights for everyone. And to me, the extension of rights, the extension of this American ideal for all and everyone who lives here, that is the most American thing that we can do. And that we can be a hold of and be a part of. And so I think, yes, we have a dark past in terms of our history. Of course we do. But we also have, spots of brightness and light. And those are the things that I want to hold on to when we have this conversation in terms of how we get to turn things around.
When we talk about optimism, post George Floyd 4 years ago, there was so much talk about DEI, right? Some 1,000 companies, I think, committed some $200 billion toward racial justice programs. Today, as you know, those DEI programs are coming under attack in boardrooms, on college campuses, in state legislatures across the country. I want to go to this post from Elon Musk, for example, where he said DEI must die. The point was to end discrimination, not replace it with different discrimination. There's been so much pushback now against DEI and the promises that were made to invest in social justice programs. So, Marcus, you're optimistic, but we see what's happening with DEI programs and conversations around that.
But it's DEI today, right? But that was true of affirmative action in the past, right? That was true of other efforts, right? There's always going to be a backlash to progress. What we have to do is endure that backlash. What we have to do is persist, right? And in order to do that, we have to stick, to our principles and to our values. I
want to ask you, Aaron, what do you say to people who feel those programs are discriminatory?
So I got to be on a show that shall remain nameless right now that specifically talked about DEI needing to die. And what I shared with folks is that I'm a DEI trainer. I do work around diversity, equity, inclusion in school spaces, government agencies, and I talk often about the need to not just call all white people racists. I don't think that's helpful, and I think in some cases that's what's happened, is we've just called anyone who's other racist, sexist. I don't think that is helpful. And I think our only way forward is to get curious about one another and to understand that Black people still are not in the C-suite. They're still, when you look at the data, we're still not in the C-suite. There may be more Black people working at Boeing right now, but they're not working in the executive suite. Right? And so I think we have to be willing to counter these narratives that I think are really disingenuous. So I think, unfortunately, the anti-DEI movement, the anti-critical race theory movement is really disingenuous. And so how I push back is just with truth. I think we have to push back with truth. I think we have to push back with education. What I tell every white leader is, if you don't have Black and brown people in your corner who can hold you accountable, then I actually don't care what you're doing around your DEI programming. You're not actually doing effective work. So we have to make sure that we're doing effective work. And I think it has to be in relationship. And so I challenge, Pew Research says that 72% of white people don't have a Black or brown friend.
So wait, say that again?
72% of white people do not have a Black or brown friend. And that means that they don't have anyone who can call them to account. They're not watching anyone walk through encounters with police. They're not watching anyone be followed in a store. They're not watching how students are being treated in schools. And so it's really easy then to take the word of whatever random person on TikTok says about Black people.
What's interesting about that to me is I don't know any Black people who don't have a white friend.
Well, particularly not in Seattle.
Do you know any Black people? So I had to ask you to repeat that because it's just stunning when you think of it that way. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that's why shows like yours, Joyce, are so important, right? Because you have people who do not at all engage or interact with Black stories, or with people like us, right? I mean, I was telling you off air, right, that the fact that my mom almost was going to cry today, knowing that there are 3 Black people on the set of a show, and here on broadcast television, when growing up in Seattle, she did not have that, right?
And you wouldn't see that,
right? And the fact that you can
progress,
exactly. The fact that you can tell these stories to folks who may or may not have otherwise been privy to this conversation, that is vitally important.
I want to end on optimism. And on this day, when we are marking to the day 4 years since the police killing of George Floyd, what gives you optimism looking ahead, Erin?
So I had the opportunity last week to do 5 school assemblies in Eastern Washington. And last year, when I went to the same school district, I was not allowed to speak to all the students because there was a fear about having the Black lady talk. There was an assumption about what I was going to talk about. And I remember at the end of my second assembly, this young white boy, probably sophomore in high school, walked up to me and he had tears in his eyes. And he said, Erin, I am a 10th grade white cisgender male atheist. And I learned so much from you today. And I just want to thank you for coming here. And about 5 minutes later, when the auditorium was empty, there was a teacher waiting for me. It was a young Latino male. And he waited till everyone was out. And he said, Erin, I'm a conservative person. I lean very conservative. I'm a first-year teacher, and I learned so much from you today, and I know that I have work to do. And it's those stories that give me hope, that keep me going back into buildings and speaking. I've had 13 keynote speeches in the last 2 weeks about this stuff, and the responses that I'm getting from people keep me going.
One person at a time.
Absolutely.
One
One
person at a time, right? One moment, one day at a time. And you, what gives you optimism?
I think it's the line from the historian Howard Zinn where he says to be hopeful is not some trivial ideal, right? But to be hopeful is something that we do every single day, right? That ultimately all the future is an endless succession of presents. So if we act now, if we love now, if we comport ourselves now in a way that we think human beings should, then we don't have to wait from some grand utopia, like right now.
You could make me cry.
We can have the society that we want to build right now.
And if we hang on to hope, right?
Yeah.
Then a lot can come from that. I want to thank both of you, Marcus Harrison Green and Erin Jones, for being with us today. So grateful for your input and your thoughts on this. Thank you.
It was a privilege today. Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.